One sign that presidential primaries are near, candidates are starting to ramp up their TV ad spending. Political director Lisa Desjardins takes a look at the mountain of cash being spent on ads and whether it's worth it.
I'm Marco Rubio.
The much used and often reviled campaign ad faces a real test in 2016. First, the sheer numbers could break records. Some experts estimate we'll see an astonishing $4.4 billion in political TV ads. But ads so far have not brought results for some.
Serious times require serious leadership.
Republican Jeb Bush has spent more on ads than any other candidate, but he's stalled in 5th or 6th place.
I have to say, it's pay more, get less. TV advertising is not nearly as effective as it once was, especially high-level races.
Peter Fenn is president of Fenn Communications and has worked in over 300 campaigns.
Jeb Bush's idea initially was to buy a lot of advertising, to use the $100 million that he'd raised for the super PAC, and to flood Iowa and flood New Hampshire.
It has not worked yet, but frontrunner Donald Trump is trying ads nonetheless, launching his first this week.
Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism.
With dark colors and striking music, the spot talks of fears, but it may also address one of Trump's worries.
I think his fear is that he needs a strong turnout. If people don't see him on paid ads, don't see him going all out in these states, it might discourage some of his voters from voting.
Another ad with strong tones? From Ted Cruz, using a visual metaphor at the border.
I understand that when the mainstream media covers immigration, it doesn't often see it as an economic issue.
Cruz, I think, with his ad this time of people dressed in suits and women in high heels walking across what would be the border, visually, people now are looking for more creativity in their advertising.
Contrast those hard-hitting ads in the crowded GOP race with the approach in the smaller Democratic field, which is more biographical.
Praised as one of America's best mayors who governed as a pragmatist.
When I think about why I'm doing this, I think about my mother, Dorothy.
Both of those got big play online, but Fenn says 70% of campaign ad dollars still go to on-air.
My sense of this is changing, but we're still going to see in this election cycle, television will be king.
But for all the dollars it brings, we don't yet know how much television will influence the choice for president. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Lisa Desjardins.
We follow the money now with Matea Gold. She's a national political reporter for the Washington Post. Matea, you've covered a lot of these campaigns, as have I. We're not going to say how old we are, but compare this to last cycle. How is the money being raised differently and spent differently?
So what we've seen in this cycle is the real full flowering of the super PAC effect. And nearly every single presidential candidate, with the exception of Bernie Sanders and most recently Donald Trump, are running with the support of super PACs this time. And that's changed everything. That's changed the way they've gotten in the race, how they've raised money, and it's changed the way money's being spent. And already through mid-December, we saw more than 40% more ads on TV than in the last cycle at that point. And 8 out of 10 of those ads were by outside groups.
And as Lisa pointed out in her piece, it's not biographical. It's not, let me tell you who I am anymore.
Well, one of the things that I think we're seeing in the Republican contest is because it is so incredibly competitive and it's really been focused on issues about terrorism and ISIS, that those issues have really come to the fore in the advertising much sooner than I think you usually see at this point in a campaign.
So who benefits so far, especially in the crowded Republican field, from this approach? For whom is this approach resonating?
Well, I think there's a really big question about whether the super PAC money is going to be the real panacea that some people thought it was going to be in this election. We already saw 2 candidates, Scott Walker and Rick Perry, forced out of the contest, even though they had millions of dollars left in their super PACs. There's a real question about whether you can succeed with the support of super PACs or whether you need really more substantial resources in your campaign.
Well, so then explain for us just one example. When Jeb Bush got, you wrote about this in a big piece in the Washington Post this week. When Jeb Bush got into the field, people thought he was going to be able to do what his brother did, clear the field by the sheer amount of money he raised. He raised the money, but he clearly didn't clear the field. What happened?
I mean, money is very different in this election than in past elections. In the past, it's been seen as a predictor of success. When money comes, there's also a sense that there is a grassroots support behind that. Now that donors that are incredibly wealthy can give these massive donations, it's not necessarily indicative of any deeper support. So one of the challenges I think that Jeb Bush has had is translating the support he has among the millionaire class, who really put in amazing amount of resources in the super PAC, to support on the ground. And so while he had a huge amount of money, other candidates also had their own billionaires supporting them, and they weren't scared away by his coffers.
Another example, Ben Carson was raising money hand over fist for a while, and it was reflecting his standing in the polls. Now his standing in the polls has dropped. Is it because he didn't spend the money correctly?
Well, he still is raising a substantial amount. He raised $20 million in the last quarter. So there, one of the things that online fundraising allows you to do is reach out to a cohort of non-traditional donors. These aren't professional donors that get involved in party politics. Ben Carson brought a lot of new people into the process, and it looks like a lot of them are still giving him money.
But how's he spending it?
Well, a lot of that money has gone back into raising more money, and we're going to get some more details about his finances when the reports come out at the end of this month. But that is going to be a real indicator of a campaign success, how much cash they actually have left on hand heading into this last final stretch.
You talked about the billionaires, or as what is it, Bernie Sanders calls them, the millionaires and billionaires. Who are they this time? Are they spending their money differently? Last time I remember Sheldon Adelson kept Newt Gingrich in the race simply by writing a check for a long time. And I think also Rick Santorum. And last time we saw Ron Burkle, another millionaire, giving money to the Clintons. This time he's supporting John Kasich, at least for now. That seems to be a different, I don't know, just a different way of organizing this.
One of the things that's so interesting is that the donor class has expanded. We're seeing new names that are not your traditional political givers. So some of the biggest backers of Senator Ted Cruz are a family in Texas, the Wilk brothers, who have made a lot of money through fracking, and they put together $15 million worth of contributions into a super PAC supporting Ted Cruz. And so a lot of folks who are not bold-faced name in the political world are getting engaged, in part because there's these new mechanisms for them to do so.
Well, and here's something that's completely different from anything we've seen before, which of course is the rise of Donald Trump before he had even spent a lot of money. And even though now he's starting to put ads on the air, it seems like he's changed the formula as well.
I mean, one of the Trump impact has completely transformed how money is being spent and whether it's even effective this time. I mean, his rivals complain he's basically getting free airtime, and so their paid media is not going to be as potent because he's getting even more airtime just getting on cable news. So, I mean, that's going to be a real question. He's starting to spend money now, but will he actually be able to succeed largely through earned media?
Is this something that the candidates are scrambling to counter, specifically having to do with Trump, or specifically to do with his approach, by maybe, I don't know, talking about issues?
Well, I mean, the issues are different in each part of the race, and obviously the Republicans right now are trying to really outdo each other with warnings about the threats facing America. That seems to be consuming the Republican electorate right now. I mean, that concerns about ISIS and terrorism have overtaken. We found concerns about taxes and health care in the polls. So whereas Obamacare looked like it was going to be a driving issue, right now that's not something that gets as much attention, at least not on the air.
And who does that benefit and who does that hurt so far, at least in fundraising?
Well, in fundraising, I mean, we're going to see at the end of this month, but I think Ted Cruz and Ben Carson have had the most success in their campaigns, and Donald Trump is doing the best in the polls.
Okay, well, we'll see how it all shakes out when people actually start to vote very soon.
Yes.
Matea Gold of the Washington Post, thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.